Time to go inside Utah politics, and we begin with Republican candidate for governor Jeff Burningham. Jeff, welcome to Inside Utah Politics. Glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Glenn.
You launched during the week. We covered that the day you launched. Talk about your background. What have you done that you believe qualifies you for this position?
Yeah, I've been an entrepreneur since very early on. Started my first business actually as a 13-year-old, but have been here in Utah creating jobs for the last decade, created over 4,000 jobs. I think it's time for an innovative outsider here in Utah, a job-creating entrepreneur with a smart plan for the growth that we're experiencing as a state.
That is clearly a message you want to get across, an innovative outsider and job creator. What do you mean by that specifically?
Yeah, we need to change the very way that government thinks. I mean, it's crazy, Glenn. We're on the verge of driverless cars in the private sector. You have to take a half day off work, so do I, to go renew our driver's license at the DMV. That does not make sense. We need to change the very way government thinks. It's not just about systems and technology, although that's part of it. It's about the hearts and minds of those that work within government, being innovative, able to serve a taxpayer the way that we expect nowadays.
And do you believe that that ability is there right now and the government is just slow to change to it?
I think that's really hard to change from the inside. I mean, politicians are enablers of the systems that have created them, while entrepreneurs are disruptors of the status quo and create opportunity for all.
Talk more about the businesses you were in. You talked about creating nearly 4,000 jobs. In what industries, and how did you get those businesses going?
Yeah, I started my first technology company as an undergrad at a university here in Utah. Sold that to a NASDAQ-listed firm when I was 25. Spun the proceeds of that into real estate, invested through the Great Recession and on, so real estate private equity. And then once the real estate was humming, we set up Utah County's first institutional venture fund. So most of the growth, most of the companies in Silicon Slopes at the point of the mountain, our firm was the first investor in.
You've been involved in politics on some level, but you haven't run for office. Why start with governor?
Yeah, I've been actively involved in politics throughout my career. I've been a precinct chair. I've raised a lot of money for Republican candidates, but have never run for political office. We are at a critical juncture right now in Utah. We need game-changing leadership, in my opinion, and that will come from an outsider. So now is the time, and I think it's an important time, so that's why now.
Some might look at that, though, and say, I might be a little concerned of a lack of institutional knowledge. Your response to that?
Government is broken. Why do we want institutional knowledge of something that is broken? We see that on a federal level, and I think everyone agrees with that. The state government is better, of course, here, and we are all grateful for that. It's still broken. Again, the DMV. We don't need to stand in a line for 4 hours at the DMV to renew our driver's license. We can do better, but we need an innovative outsider with a track record of success to come in and to change up the status quo. That is my conviction. And I think that message resonates with Utahns. I mean, the response since the launch has been incredible, and we're excited about that.
So you mentioned the DMV as one area. What are some other areas that really stick out to you that need to be reworked and, as you say, fixed?
Again, it's about the way that government thinks. So there are several ways. One thing that comes to mind, we need to modernize our education system. We're in an industrial age education system. We have my wife and I have 3 children in public schools right now. My wife, Sally, was a second grade school teacher. We need to modernize education. There is a mismatch between what our children are learning and the new economy that they're graduating into. It's not the industrial age, it's the information age. We need to match up what they're learning with jobs that actually exist and are coming. I was just at a college campus earlier.
Yeah, give us an example of what you mean by that. What would you like to see change?
There are a bunch of boot camps, technology boot camps that have set up, like Dev Mountain, and you see billboards all along I-15. Come learn coding and then get a job. They're taking advantage of a gap in the market. There is a gap in the market. We have a shortage of 5,000 tech workers along the Wasatch Front. There is a shortage of skilled construction workers. There's no reason that we can't bring some of that boot camp mentality into high school so that our children are learning the skills that are actually needed as they get out. Like a public-private partnership, that can happen, but it takes an innovative outsider to bring that kind of thinking to government.
And in that situation, should someone be work ready by the time they graduate from high school, say? There's a lot of, the reason I bring that up is because there's a lot of talk of, hey, maybe we need to get away from this 4-year degree thinking and get into some trades, learn a skill, and be ready to work as soon as we get out of high school.
What I think we need to get away from is thinking that the 4-year degree is the only option or the best option. I think there's a culture in the state that it's like, if you haven't gotten your 4-year degree, you're somehow a failure or have failed in some sense. That is absolutely not the case. We love our children in Utah, and there are many ways to learn the skills, not just a 4-year degree. The value of a 4-year degree decreases every day right now. It becomes more important what you know. The world is becoming more entrepreneurial. So we can't think linearly, we can't think in a linear fashion. We need to think of exponential growth, and our children need to think creatively as well.
Okay, I want to get into some issues that if you are the governor, you would be faced with, some big issues of the day. The first, school funding. You know well that we are last in the nation. Is that acceptable? And where do you go from there if you were elected governor?
Yeah, that's not acceptable. I don't know why we'd want to be last in the nation in that. We love our children, Glenn. Again, there is latent potential to change that, I think. There is potential to change that. We need an innovative outsider with fresh ideas, a fresh perspective.
So what would be one of your ideas to change that?
Our public lands are very interesting, right? We have lands that have been set apart in trust for the funding of education. If we have a strong federal delegation, a strong governor, there are opportunities to create increased funding for education, in my opinion, that would not cost taxpayers more money.
Tax reform, a big issue in our state right now. Where do you stand on the conversation that we're having there? Do we need to reform the system?
Look, we do not have a revenue problem in the state, Glenn. A revenue has been up and to the right. Our entrepreneurs and the people of this great state have made sure that we do not have a revenue problem. We may have a spending problem. We may have a government growth problem. In fact, government has grown over 30%, state government, in the last 5 years. And my question to you and to all of Utah, are we better served? 30% better served? So, to get to your answer, we do not have a revenue problem. We may have a silo issue that we need to address. There are a lot better ways to address that than a tax on services. I am not for a tax on services. I am not for increased taxes.
Are you open to changing the Constitution for the income tax and the school requirement?
I am open to creative ideas that serve the people.
Okay. Abortion, a big issue across the country. This year, the state passed an 18-week abortion ban, knowing it was going to end up in the courts, which it has right now. If you were governor, would you have signed that bill?
I'm pro-life. This is a pro-life state, and I believe in federalism. I believe that states should have the ability to create laws that best serve the people in the state.
So you would sign that bill if you were governor?
If it was the will of the people, yes.
And do you think it needs to be taken further than that, 18 weeks?
No.
Like what we're seeing elsewhere?
Go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish.
No, I was going to say that we are a pro-life state.
Okay.
And this is something, we need to do all that we can to protect the unborn. That's something that's important to us here in Utah, something that's important to me.
Okay, we have 30 seconds. I want to get into public lands. You already mentioned it could be a source of school funding, but do you support the Bears Ears and Grand Staircase Escalante reductions we saw from the Trump administration?
I think that the people that are closest to the lands know how to manage them best. I've traveled all around the state to all 29 counties. Rural Utah needs a fighter in their corner. I intend to be that fighter for rural Utah.
All right, we're going to have to wrap it up on that note. Thanks for joining us, and we will follow along the campaign. Appreciate having you here.